so that we can also post this on YouTube. And for those of you who are watching for the first time, please know that this is a radio show, that we also record the on and off the air conversations. It's unedited. I know many of you have your opinions of how to edit the show, but for now, we are doing it unedited. And that way you get the information. It doesn't matter if I sound good or look good. It's the information that we need to get out there. Very powerful information, life-changing information, and hopefully you'll hear that instead. So there'll be 4 segments. We take breaks during the segments, and so there will be interruptions. So I apologize for that ahead of time. So I am excited to have Teal Swan on the show, and for some reason my voice isn't matching my actions. So let's see if I have anything open that needs to be closed. Hold on a second. I may have too many windows open. Let me see if that will do it. I'm going to turn off everything. Okay. I hope I don't delete something important. But today we have Teal Swan, and I am really excited because so many of us want to take a stand, and there are people who love you for that. And then there are people who will not love you for that. Mm-hmm. But if you are authentic, and if you are your true self, and you honor what you know to be true, and you're open, because you could be wrong, we could be wrong, you never know, then miracles do happen. There are going to be people that are going to try to knock you down. But today's show, we're going to talk with Teal Swan, who's going to give us tips and how to be authentic in an inauthentic world. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to learn and grow together. Here we go. We're going to mute us right now, Teal.
The Lillian Mcdermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian Mcdermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian Mcdermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who've been tuning in to the Lillian Mcdermott radio show since 2011, or maybe you just tuned in yesterday for the first time, welcome back. But if this is the first time that you've tuned into the show, please know that I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. And it is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today is a really exciting day because we get to have Teal Swan back. She's been a very busy woman, created 2 books last year, and now she is here to just share with us what it's like to be able to rise above and be noticed in a world of people that are trying to blend in. And when you try to rise above the fold, or whoever is out there saying what's normal and what's not normal, what's right, what's wrong, and you're feeling like, okay, well, maybe I know a little bit different. Maybe like the people that thought the earth was flat, and then they said, no, the earth is a sphere. No, maybe the earth is flat. It took a while. But there's still people that have learned that the earth is a sphere, but there's still people that believe the earth is flat. Both are very passionate about their opinion and what they believe. But does it really matter? Let's focus on our similarities for today. Let's focus on how we can rise above from Teal Swan. And for those of you who've never met Teal Swan knows what it's like to be different and knows what it's like to be told she's wrong, even though she knew within herself that she held a very precious gift. And that's the gift of knowledge, the gift that comes from our Creator. That can never be taken away. And so how do you overcome being raised in a cult and then learning that that is not normal and knowing that it's not normal? Anyway, I'm just excited that Teal's here because she's going to share with us how to be genuine, regardless if there are people that are trying to sabotage you in your mission in your life. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Teal Swan is here to do just that. Welcome, Teal, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I just love everything that you do. And everything that you do, you're just so spot on. And it's okay if people don't like it or they like it. So share a little bit about your background so you can catch people up that have just for the first time heard about you and how you were able to create that steadiness of yourself, of that genuineness that you do have today. If you'd like to share that with us.
How to catch people up. Oh God, I never know how deep to go with this one.
In 2 minutes or less, Teal.
Well, I'm really a firm believer of the idea that we all have an inborn excellence. And most of us don't recognize that excellence because most of us come into societies or families where that excellence is not recognized. It's not recognized because the people in our lives don't desire that particular form of excellence. They want something else.
Yeah.
So our only way of adapting is to change who we are and what we are to fit other people's desires. And by doing that, we sort of lose touch with our own compass. I was born extrasensory to a family that was not really on board with that. And they didn't know what to do with it. So I didn't fit in and couldn't make myself conform. It was the kind of thing where, even in schools, just past my family, you can imagine a little extrasensory kid sitting in a school district in a very rural Mormon city. Yeah, that went well.
Yeah.
So, the whole reflection that I got my whole life was like, something's wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. Something's seriously wrong with you. And it was real hard, actually, to get myself to a place where I even recognized that I did have, anything to offer the world. I basically went around telling myself the story for the majority of my life that I didn't fit in here. Like this was some cosmic mistake. So I ended up actually getting horrifically abused based on the fact that I was extrasensory. I caught the radars of a local sociopath and then ended up being tortured for the period of 13 years. And I ran away when I was 19 and had to put myself back together again. And even, it took years for me to even see that those inborn abilities may be something that could benefit the world and may be some form of excellence.
Isn't that beautiful though? That what you were told was different and you didn't fit in, that it turned out to be your uniqueness and what was so beautiful about you. And
yes. Yeah, it's beautiful now. Back then it was like, why?
Why me, right?
Yep.
But we're glad that we're not happy how it happened, but we're glad that you rose above it. And that's what this show is about today. If any of you are experiencing something that you're feeling very uncomfortable with, perhaps it's time to rise above it. And let's discover what that is with Teal Swan when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com and at Facebook Live at Lillian's Radio Show. So join us. If you're listening on the air, you can always join us at Lillian's Radio Show for the live show. And we're going to continue our conversation with Teal Swan when we return. We'll be right here waiting for you.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
So Victoria, thank you so much, Victoria, for joining us today. She says this is the first time she's heard about you. You're in for a treat. You're in for a treat, Victoria. So Teal, if you'd like to share a little bit how you ended up with a sociopath.
Well, my parents didn't know anything to do with the type of stuff that I was talking about when I was talking about people that were covered in certain colors and being able to like tell people what ailments they had when they had not even had those diagnosed by doctors and all that stuff. And talking to dead relatives, that was a personal favorite. My parents were terrified, by that, I think. So it was like almost like when a kid is born to you and it's so far outside the realms of what you've ever seen before, what are you going to do with that kid? So there was a guy in town who was local who was like, I know what to do with that kid. And I think my parents did what most parents do, which is thinking they did the best for you when that was entrusted me to a man who really did not have my best interest at heart.
Correct.
Who wanted to use all of those abilities towards his cult behavior and cult groups. So yeah, that was hell.
So you saw murders, little children being murdered. He also played incredible games with you in your mind. And so even though you would go home every night, right?
Yeah.
You were afraid that he would kill your family.
Yeah.
So you were captive in your thoughts, in your mind. And that's how he abused you in many ways too. And other ways.
It's worse than that too. I mean, there's this other layer of the special relationship and the special identity you get to have when you're with this person. So, what really keeps you in there is just this belief that the only person you'll ever really belong with and the only person that ever really loves you is that person who's hurting you the most. And that was the real hard one to break through. Even after I got away, like my story was there, he's telling me this because he loves me.
Because he loves you. Yeah. All these psychological games that people play. And we think that love, I had an argument with somebody, not an argument, a disagreement, because I was saying control, conditional love is not love. It's control.
Yep.
And they said, no, it's still love. And I'm like, no, it's not. Okay, we hear the tap. We're about to get muted and we're going to continue with segment 2 on the radio. Here we go.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott radio show / classroom, where we always learn and grow together. Today's teacher is Teal Swan. And for those of you who have never heard about Teal Swan, just Google her. You'll find out a lot of stuff of Teal Swan. She has given away a lot of her journey. In many ways, she has become a spiritual teacher to many who have found that she speaks a different truth that they were taught. Just like someone said to her, I love you. I do this because I love you, but they turned out to be her greatest abuser. So love all of a sudden becomes something different. So Teal, let's really quickly, because your life has just, you've done so much in a very short period of time. How do you go from being abused by a cult leader and whatever all that entails, and then becomes a spiritual guide, a spiritual leader, someone who says, hey, it's okay to be different?
Well, after I escaped, I went into professional sports because I wanted nothing to do with any of this, just nothing, right? So I became a professional skier, and then after that, a professional competitive speed skater. And there came this point in my life, it was right after I had a son, actually, where I realized that this is not in alignment. I could very clearly understand that this is an avoidance of who I am, and it was really frustrating me in sports because what you'll notice when you're in the professional sports field is that there's really not a real reckoning for why one person wins and one person doesn't. You've got a field of people who are all so good, they're within milliseconds of each other. Mm-hmm. So I was really wanting to understand what is it that is preventing me from going further. And you will hit a point where whatever you're trying to run away from is the very reason you can't excel. So it was a combination of, really seeing that, and also the fact that my son was born with this like beautiful little crystalline aura. And I saw that and I was like, oh no, this kid has got the same issue that I've got, So I had a little bit of freak session about that before realizing there is no way for me to teach this child how to be in alignment with any of this if I'm not. So, I was like, okay, let's consider opening the door to do what I used to do as a child, which is to see individual people and to tell them what I see. And when I did that, to my complete surprise, not only was it like I could do it for 6 hours and it just would seem like nothing, I had actual, like, really obvious truths to share that nobody knew. And it blew my mind that nobody knew, but that's how we are about whatever we're excellent at, right? Mm-hmm. We don't notice that it's very big because it's so second nature to us, but other people are like, wow, So I started to see how, based off of the stuff that I could clearly see and giving that to people, they were able to overhaul their entire lives with it. And it was at that point that I realized maybe my whole issue, my whole life has been trying to find a place to fit in, as opposed to realize that I am the place. I need to fit the world to me. And the minute that I made that switch, I found my purpose. Not only did I find my purpose, it was like, it was overnight success. I wrote a book in 3 months, published that book, and it was like, wildfire. Yeah. And now it's like, I can't think about doing something else. Everything I've done before pales in comparison to the amount that I love this and the level of dedication I have to it. It's borderline. So yeah.
Well, but you don't even fit into that. People might tell you, you're supposed to look a certain way. You're too beautiful to be a spiritual leader. You get all this stuff. People have this idea of what perfection is, but really it's what's inside of them that they're seeing in you.
So I'm the whole I am the reject of the spiritual community. I finally figured out why, though.
Okay.
Because when you look at my excellence within this field of excellence, the extrasensory stuff is not actually what makes me excellent. I think that I would be a very mediocre spiritual teacher if all I had was this access to all this other truth. It's going through the torment that made me so acutely aware of human suffering that I can now bridge the gap between what we call 11th dimensional truth and these very harsh physical realities which most of us face. And I don't think that anybody's bridged that gap before. What I do better than anyone else, if you want my opinion, is show people reality. Mm-hmm. Now, what we know is that reality sucks. It's not comfortable. Anybody who's been on a shamanic journey, you know how it's like. Sometimes reality smacks you across the face and you realize you're living a lie. So that's fun. And what I realized recently is that A, I have no demographic. B, being a person who teaches reality, my worst places to go are the spiritual field, because the majority of people go to self-help and go to spirituality, not to see reality, but to feel comfort. If you want comfort, you had better run away from me. Mm-hmm. But of course, I've got an argument. My argument is your only axis of power is inside reality. It's only by seeing reality that you can change things within reality. So, my argument is everything you want, including the feeling of comfort, is on the other side of seeing reality, but that's not something most people are on board with yet.
And that's absolutely true. And I've noticed that it's very easy, even within myself and all of us who are trying to seek this truth of the world. We want to fix everybody else, but we seldom look back at ourselves and say, you know what I see in that person is who I am. So what is it about that person that reminds me of what I'm trying to run away from? It's interesting that the two different running and you could not hide from that. So and the running gives you this high, but at the same time within you're probably feeling a low.
Oh, it's funny that you said that, because I remember this day. I always loved ski days where it was like really kind of gloomy. Uh-huh. And when you get really, really good at skiing, you start to feel like you're a shark in a pond of fish. So I got this feeling where there's no way that anybody could ever catch up to me, and I can go places they won't ever be able to go. And so I felt like the king of the mountain. And I had that day where it was like I was sort of using people as mock ski poles, or like the gates, I'm using people, human gates. And I get down to the bottom and I'm like, Teal, there is no one chasing you anymore. You have got to get that there is no one chasing you anymore. Because I looked back sort of expecting someone to be on my tails, and it's like an empty slope. I remember that moment and having the exact thought that you just proposed.
Interesting. And and sometimes I wonder, people who run, what is it that they're running? It's like everything we do isn't just what we do. It's a message that our bodies are constantly giving us.
Yep.
It's like, okay, what we do is sometimes what we are trying to maybe avoid the most, which is to really look at ourselves. So with that in mind, how can you, and you've done so many, for those of you who want to learn more about Teal Swan, you can go to tealswan.com. You can also just go to her YouTube channel, where she is so generous with her information. So if you think you can't afford a private session with Teal, you don't need it. Well, you could use it, but there's so much information there. And you know what, Teal, I love how you just say it. You just say it, but that's not socially acceptable. I used to be like that. And I burned a lot of relationships because people aren't ready for the truth. You have to ask permission. And I understand that now. You have to ask permission, because I see things that other people don't see. Like you see things that other people don't see. And I'm sure that all of us are seeing things that other people don't see, because we're seeing ourselves as a reflection in the other person. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we stop seeing ourselves in others and really look inside ourselves and say, okay, I am the one that I need to really work on?
Well, I think that starts with this universal truth, that this is a fractal-based universe. That means that all individual fragments within the greater universe are actually fractals of the whole. So as a physical human, it may not seem like this because your eyes are not really seeing fractals the way that they exist within nature, but anybody who understands mathematics will tell you about the fractal nature of the universe. The principles of fractals is about self-similarity. That means that anything that is in the external reality is in fact shrunken within you. So anything that you see outside in the world is actually a fragment within oneself. And it's unanimous. This is everyone. So if you see a terrorist in the world, you have an internal terrorist. If you see a serial killer in the world, you have an internal serial killer. If you have somebody who's like the best spiritual teacher in the world, exterior in the exterior, you have that inside you. So it's about re-owning all of these aspects of self. And the ones that you have to pay the most attention to are the ones where the polarization exists. Meaning, I adore and idolize this. That's usually an indication, because any gravity implies that there's distance between you and that aspect, right? Or opposition. So when you feel that idolization, it's an indication of an aspect of yourself that you have woefully disowned, meaning I didn't want to get rid of it, but I really had to for some reason. If you've got that repulsion towards something, it's something that you intentionally and not woefully disowned. Like, this is so disgusting and got me in so much trouble, I want nothing to do with it. So it's to see that anytime we've got this reaction in the exterior world, it implies a disunity inside oneself. And to look for that corresponding part.
Okay, so with that in mind, what happens is there's a distraction. There's a distraction. Like, for example, I'm just going to put it out there because I'm taking a stand on this. There are people that are for vaccine or against vaccine. I'm taking a stand that I'm for vaccine safety. And then people make a big deal about all of this. But why aren't we all standing for vaccine safety?
I'm actually standing for the opposite. So
vaccine safety? You don't want vaccine safety?
No. So I mean, it's good. You're seeing two polarized. I don't know if it's good, but you're seeing two polarized perspectives, and I'm just as aggressive to the opposite side.
Yeah. So there's so many different things. I mean, we see it in politics all the time. It's about right or wrong, left or right, up and down. So many different things. But then it doesn't become about that. It's about the distraction about something totally different.
Like what?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, if you're a Democrat, the Republicans stink. If you're a Republican, the Democrats stink, but nobody ever makes a decision, but nobody ever talks about the issue. That's what I'm talking about. So with me, what I'm saying is, how do we how do we take a stand without having to buy into, oh, and we've got about a minute left to the segment, without buying into all the drama and the distraction, and making it about safety, about being safe. And if that means whatever it is, then it is whatever it is. But I can't go up to somebody to say, okay, this is my position, without having an argument about it. Like, my friends don't know what position I take in the, I don't do politics. I don't do sports. I don't talk about it. And if we do, I talk it in a place where I feel comfortable and safe.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is something that we are even afraid to have our own voice because they're so right or wrong.
Oh, yes. Yeah, especially when it's around safety issues. Yeah, I can see that.
Around safety issues, of course, of course. Okay. So for those of you who are listening to Teal Swan and you're going, well, I want to be able to say whatever I want whenever I want.
Okay.
There's such a thing as being politically correct. We can't do that anymore. How do we bridge that gap? How can we still speak our truth and know that it's going to be okay for us to be who we are and be okay with it? And we're going to continue our conversation with Teal Swan. And if you want to join us off the air, you can go to @Lillian's Radio Show on Facebook.com. Please join us, subscribe, follow us there so that we can have you reply and say how it is that you feel. And we're going to continue our conversation when we return worldwide, and we'll be right here waiting for you. Okay, we just got unmuted. For those of you who are listening on Facebook Live, let us know where you're from. And if you have any questions for Teal, feel free to ask your questions. I know that I proposed a question, Teal, during a show last week. And I talked about how I'm different. I feel different from my family. And so many people say, I feel different too. I feel different too. I feel different too. How do we take a stand? How do we take a stand and be okay with being different? And why is different wrong? Why can't it be okay? How do we make it okay?
You know, I feel like there's not a great answer for this, because I feel like there's no way to make yourself get to a point where you're suddenly okay with it. It's still gonna suck. I feel like what it is like the bigger problem here that's not being mentioned is the fact that we are so tied to the idea that we want to be so comfortable all the time and never feel negative emotion that we don't get that it's always going to suck if people hate you. You know, if you're getting in a fight, that's never going to feel awesome.
Of course not. Of course not. But how do you get past the fact that this is something that is part of the growth? This is part of the journey. This
is my answer. There almost has to become a part. You know, I don't remember. I think it was probably Anais Nin, I think, wrote this amazing, it was a segment of a poem. The day would come that the pain it took to stay closed tightly in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom. And I feel like that's why I can't give an answer for how somebody can be ready. That there's a point where it becomes too painful to like not, you know, be you. But at that point, you rediscover free will. And it was almost like an answer to your previous question when you were talking about, you know, how do you take a stand and how do you not care? And for me, it's not about not caring. It's about really having the choice. The free will is more important to me than just taking a stand. It's like in any moment, I have the free will to really look at myself and look at the other person and look at what the highest and best in that situation is. And one time it will be standing up for this. I mean, if you found something you really care about, then there's going to be that day where it's like, this is the most important thing to do, regardless of the consequence. In another situation, really looking at it, and if you're doing it from free will, not the space of determinism, maybe not saying something will be the best choice. So I don't want to make a blanket statement that it's always the best to be totally authentic and slam people as truth, or that it's always best to think about how things are going to be received first, because I feel like that personal truth always changes based on the situation you're in. So I feel like the best thing to think about is that authenticity has to be in service of something.
I like that. Authenticity has to be in service for something. I like that. Okay, so we're about to get muted and we're going to start our third segment. Here we go.
Need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow together. And today's teacher is Teal Swan. And Teal Swan her journey has been incredible. It's been an incredible journey. And she is our teacher today to share how it is that we can take our journey and turn it into even if it's the most devastating thing, to be grateful that it's leading us to the path that we were created to discover. And that is so true for Teal as well. And so today I want to just take a little break right now and talk about my website. I want to encourage all of you who are listening today and who will listen in the future at this broadcast. I'd love for you to be a part of helping the show grow. Like us, share us, and subscribe. So subscribe to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we take personal responsibility for the life we want to live. And it does stink, like Teal says. It does stink sometimes. It's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. It's wrapped around ugly paper at times. But once we open it and we realize that it's a gift, then perhaps we look back and say, this was the best thing that could have happened to me. And then it becomes your passion instead of your poison. And so all those things that we talk about on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show that affect our spirit, our mind, our body. And so I want to ask you to please subscribe at whenyouneedafriend.com. And also while you're there, check out all my social media, figure out a way to like us and follow us, and go to YouTube and subscribe there as well. But while you're doing all of that, because this is how we stay together, and learn from one another, I ask that you check out my sponsors. Without my sponsors, there would be no show. So please figure out different ways that you can support them, that the way that they are supporting the show. Although we're going to figure out a way we can do this without sponsors, because we have to. We've got to figure out a way to do this without sponsors, because the truth I talk about too isn't very popular and it isn't very comfortable. So I understand what Teal Swan is saying, and perhaps maybe why I relate to her at such a deep level. And so I want to encourage you to go to podcast. I'm on all the podcasts. You can call or text me at 407-373-5959. If you're watching at Lillian's radio show, you can send me a private message. And let's all continue this conversation. This is our show where we learn and grow together. And Teal Swan is our teacher today. And I'm so excited to talk about how we can take a stand. We can take a stand and to continue to be authentic, even if people try to sabotage us or whatever it is. So, Teal, I know, and I love about you, that there is no one size fits all. And that's true. Every circumstance is different. Every person is different. So with the fact that we are in a world that, when we take a stand, we're going to face ridicule. We're going to face, it's amazing the feedback I get on YouTube, or the feedback I get that is, and I'm sure you do too. And so with that in mind, we want to be loved by everybody. We want to be liked by everybody. And people don't understand that words sometimes can hurt a lot, but we can't give people that kind of power over us. So how is it that you keep it? How do you keep the balance? Can you give us some tips on keeping that balance?
Being able to deal with it when everybody slams you.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sure you're like, you've dealt with that before.
Oh yeah, it's an understatement. I mean, I have to have security at every event. I have death threats all the time. So,
and by the way, I get that, because when you were on my show last, I was threatened. Mm-hmm. but here you are again. I took a stand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, this is always hard for me to answer because it's the part of my career that I actually struggle the most with. You know, and I don't want to like lie to everybody and be on this show and be like, well, what's authentic is the fact that it doesn't matter. No, it matters, and it sucks. And it's been like, in terms of personal growth, probably the biggest personal acceleration aspect of my career. Every time that happens to me, I feel not seen. It brings back all of my pain about, you know, always being in that scapegoat role. And it's like a layer after layer after layer after layer after layer of trauma that I have to face within myself.
Does it ever go away?
I don't know whether it goes away yet. I mean, I'll talk to me in 10 years.
Okay, we'll have you every year.
What does happen is it gets better. What has been getting better is that I'm not taking it as personally anymore.
Great.
But the reason for that is like a lot of awareness by facing the trauma that comes up. So for example, like for the first 2 years, I was not anticipating this, call me naive. I was anticipating that going out into the world, there would be people who would disagree with what I was saying because I understood that society operates from a different paradigm. What I never was prepared for was them going against me as a person, which has been by far the majority of what's happened. Nobody has an issue with what I say. It's
That's a distraction, Teal. That's the distraction I'm talking about. It's not what you're saying. It's how you say it. And let's talk about how you say it, or whatever you look like.
High heels.
High heels. God forbid a spiritual leader would wear high heels.
Exactly. So okay. I get attacked for the person that I am and made to be this, I mean, monster, like a literal monster. So I had to look, you know, first at the layers of all of my trauma about being scapegoated as a child. Then I had to look at layers of, do I really think this about myself? I mean, you can only get so much layering like that in childhood without having a part of you that actually feels like you might be. So I had to look at those aspects, and, you know, I had to really own my haters as part of me. And it's still my practice. This is why I'm saying I'm not there yet, because it's the hardest for me. You know, if I've got a person that's like a Christian fundamentalist, for example, I have spent my life damaged by that demographic. So it's very hard for me to see, okay, what part of me is them?
Yeah.
And that looks like, you know, what part of me is so dogged around my beliefs that I am unwilling to open my mind to alternatives? What aspect of me, you know, holds on to goodness and rightness above everything? So I've had to like find all of these disowned aspects of myself that are being reflected in this exterior type of a setting, and also come to peace with the fact that, you know, I actually choose with my free will. That was another thing I was doing. I wasn't feeling it was a choice. It was almost like, well, because I was put down here as Teal Swan, my purpose has destroyed my life because it's drugged me into the line of fire. I had to actually find my free will to say, you know what, if I sign up to a life where I am killed for this, can all of me choose to say yes to that? That was a hard one too. So it's like there's layers after layers, but it's what gets people in trouble is not being willing to face those layers, or feeling like, well, it's done. Anytime you say it's done, you're not done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was at a retreat, and the guy, and I had dealt, and I had thought about this, and I dealt with it. I dissected it. I knew it. It was like, but then he asked me the same question in front of a bunch of strangers, and all of a sudden my lips started trembling like I was a 9-year-old little girl, and I burst into tears, and I was like fighting it, and I looked to the person, and I said, I've dealt with this already. I don't know why I'm crying. And everybody laughed. And they all said, we're not laughing at you. We're laughing with you. We've all been there. And just this last week, I experienced something that I hadn't experienced in a long time. And I thought I had dealt with, and it was gone. And then it was like, no big deal. You know, I've dealt with it. I've forgiven it. I've moved on. But it opened a scar.
Yep.
It actually caused it to bleed. And I mentioned this on the show not too long ago. It was last week. And I said, my tears were leaking. My eyes were leaking. I had no control over crying. I was like, my eyes were leaking, because I guess deep down inside, I had just put it in a lockbox. And that's what we do. We put it kind of like in a really pretty place and say, okay, I've learned from it. I've grown from it. And that person was a teacher of what not to do. But it still affects us at a deeper level that we haven't reached yet.
Totally. Totally. And like this beautiful thing happens when you face things too, which is these truths come in. When you face anything painful, out of that painful emotion, I should say underneath the painful emotion is a deep truth. And so, the thing that has done the most about me and my haters is realizing that I can't control people's desire. If people don't want what it is that I'm offering, which is, reality or whatever, then I can't force someone to change what they want. So it's really not about me. It's about what a person wants.
Exactly. And when we change that perspective and we say, I need to continue to be about my business. And I was coaching somebody, Teal, that was becoming a lawyer. And it was her first year of law school. And she was telling me about this one person that she was having an issue with. And it was like the whole session was about that. But then I asked her how many other people were in the class. And there were like 40 other people. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me about the 39? Why did we spend so much time on the one? Why is it that we're so drawn to that one person that clouds our vision of what reality is? So that one person doesn't like us.
I totally have an answer for this.
Okay, what is it?
It's the trauma around mom and dad. If we came into a household where what we are innately excellent at is not something they're going to accept, we're going to get into the pattern of I have to make you love me.
Gotta make you love me. I will make you love me, but she won't, or he won't, or whatever. And that becomes the distraction. So we don't have to deal with it.
Yep. We've
got to stop with the drama and start looking at the real root cause. What are we looking at? And you know what, Teal, I love your honesty, that we're all still trying to figure it out. We're all still trying to figure it out. And we're going to continue our conversation with Teal Swan off the air at Lillian's radio show when we return worldwide at I love you, Teal.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
I haven't even shared this. So for those of you who are watching, I didn't even share this on my groups because I was so excited to see Teal. So if you guys have the opportunity, share it. Tell all your friends that you're watching Teal Swan and on the Lillian Mcdermott radio show, and make sure that they are willing to or just make sure that you're willing to do that. So we have listeners from all over the world, Teal. We have Jordan, we have England, we have the United States watching today. And where else? I don't know. So come out from wherever you're at. And if you have any questions, we have Tracy. You don't need to apologize ever for being late to the classroom. Everybody can come and go as they please. And I'm so excited about all of you who are watching. So Teal, isn't it sometimes you think that perfection's going to set in? And the word you used earlier was excellence. There's no such thing as perfection, but I love excellence. Excellence I can deal with. Mm-hmm. So at what point do we say, why do I focus on that one? And you said it's because of issues that we have with our family.
Mm-hmm.
But is there
no option? We don't see that there's another option. That's what it is.
So what's...
It's like, I'm sure you guys have heard this self-help thing because it's a viral thing where like baby elephants, you tie them up to something when they're little and then they grow and they're like way bigger and they can't. Yeah, everybody's heard that one.
The shackles,
Yeah, it's no joke. That's how we work mentally. Yeah. So if we in our childhood environment kept trying to change ourselves in order to be loved, or trying, if we couldn't change ourselves, to be seen, right, so that we could be loved for our excellence with people who didn't desire that form of excellence, right? Then this becomes a pattern we're stuck in. It literally never occurs to us any more than it does the elephant that it can get away from the tree stump. Never occurs to us that we might just pick ourselves up and put ourselves in an environment where people actually want what we are.
And that's the root of envy and jealousy and creating a different story in our head.
Yeah, and what's so funny is the minute you do this, it's painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It sucks when you realize, and you have to really accept, I'm never going to be wanted by this person. Especially when they're gaslighting you by saying, we love you and we want you, when it's obvious all they're doing is trying to turn you into something else. But I mean, the minute you can let go of that is the minute you can really start looking in the direction of the people and places who do value you for what you actually offer. And that changes the whole paradigm. And not only that, it actually changes those relationships you have with the primary person. You know, I had a real hard time, just to be completely authentic, in the relationship with my mother. You know, the two of us were at each other's throats all through my teen years. And it wasn't until I stopped having to get her to value me for certain things that I could actually even see her, you know, because I had been telling myself the entire story of my life, you know, it was just her. It's just her. She'll never see me. But my obsession over see me made me not see her. And it wasn't until I was able to change that pattern and actually find people who really do value what I have that I was even able to create any wiggle room there in that relationship.
That's beautiful. And, you know, accepting people, you know, we look at ourselves, but we don't look at what we're doing to the other person. And that's a great way to start the next segment. And we're about to be muted. I heard the little tap. So here we go.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. You can join us at Lillian's Radio Show on Facebook, watch us on YouTube. There's so many different ways to stay connected. And I'm just so honored to have Teal Swan. And I know, Teal, that I will get some emails for having you on and messages too. But I believe that your message, it needs to be heard. You know, and it doesn't matter. You know, we think that a person who is a spiritual leader, and I remember saying to J.P. Sears, do you know J.P. Sears?
Yes, actually, personally.
Okay, so J.P. Sears has been on my show for many years, well, for a couple of years before he became even bigger than he is. And I remember the first time I spoke to J.P. and I said, J.P., I love you. And he goes, thank you, but what you love is the illusion of me. And that has stuck with me. You know, that has stuck with me. I hear his voice. He's like my Jiminy Cricket in my head. You know, he is right. We fall in love with what we believe you are.
Yes.
And if you are human, all of a sudden you can't be a spiritual leader. But if you read the Bible, all throughout the Bible, every single leader was not very, with the exception of a few, everyone was flawed. And these flawed characters...
You came up with exceptions, did you?
I have to say that.
Oh, really?
I have to say that. But they were all flawed. And I kept going to Bible study week after week after week, waiting for perfection. And it never happened. And someone said, but that's the good news. You don't have to be perfect to do the work of God.
And I think it's quite dangerous, actually, because, like, you know, the reality is that we have been trying to use spirituality as a way of splitting ourselves, actually. So for thousands of years, spirituality has been dedicated towards transcending our humanity, disowning and rejecting and denying our humanity, as if humanity is something we need to evolve beyond. And one of the things that I'm the most aggressive towards teaching, being a teacher of integration, is that we need to actually take the opposite stance, that it's our humanity we need to in fact embrace. And it's not until you own your very human needs, very human impulses, very human emotions, and all of these aspects that you can actually meet those needs so that they're not actually getting their needs met in manipulative ways. And what we call demonic activity is actually just beings or entities that are trying to manipulate in order to get needs met because it couldn't happen in a direct way. For example, I get power and energy through seduction. That's one of those, you know, in the backdoor types of ways that we go about getting it. So I think there's nothing more dangerous than to teach that we have to transcend our humanity.
Yes. And so with that in mind, so let's talk about this authentic living, because you've been able to figure out this authentic living. And let's come towards, like, each one of us needs to figure out our own authentic life. Mm-hmm. So let's put the mirror to our face. And how do we do that?
How do we live an authentic life? Oh gosh.
How do we put the mirror to our face so that we can, each one of us, identify our own authenticity?
I have actually an entire video that's going to do better justice than me just like trying to go through every point on YouTube. It's called How to Be Authentic. But if you're really interested, I suggest you go there. For bullet points, though, we have to see the areas that we're not authentic. You know, we got to see the incongruences between what is happening on the outside and what is happening on the inside. If we want to really define authenticity, it is the conscious mending of the incongruencies between our inner and outer selves. And so it's noticing. That's really the first step for people, noticing those incongruencies. Noticing when we're like, yes, inside we're like, you know.
Or when you're just like, oh my God, they're coming. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
But you can't just go, get away from me right now. It just doesn't work that way.
But it's not about like what a person's going to do or should do. It's about restoring a person to a state of free will. So in that moment, if you're noticing the incongruency, then it's about the awareness. What is this incongruency about? And am I going to consciously not be authentic? Actually, consciously being inauthentic is a lot higher frequency than unconscious inauthenticity.
Interesting point.
And so for a lot of us, that's a stepping stone, at least. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like also, you know, inauthenticity is really bred by self-betrayal, which is that we're split. You know, you can feel these splits within yourself anytime you feel that internal opposition. There's part of me that wants to do it. There's part of me that doesn't want to do it. There's part of me that's happy. There's part of me that's sad. And to become authentic, you have to actually expand yourself wide enough to be able to hold these opposing polarities in order to find the place where these polarities actually merge. I'm calling this the third option, or the third element. It's like, where is the meeting place between these polarities that they can both agree upon? And that is what is most authentic actually for a human being.
Very good. And so one of the things that it comes up a lot with you is that many of the things you say is opposite to the psychologists and psychiatrists who've studied this for years and years and years. And here you come, a person that's just been molded off the clay on the ground, and you say, wait a minute, it's not about denying that something happened. It's not about staying away from your pain. You go towards your pain. And everybody goes, what the what? Oh, we have to do what? That's painful. No, let's just avoid it. And you're saying, no, we need to embrace it. But embrace it in a way, let's say, like Teal says. Let's say it, Teal, your way.
Embrace authenticity? Oh, I was on a totally different thought.
No, I said, you know, like when, like the world, the allopathic community will say you need to disassociate yourself from the pain and the shame, and you come in and say, not so much.
Hell no. In fact, if you would like to never heal for the rest of your life, you can go ahead and do that and see how long it lasts for you.
How's that working, right?
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're going to run about 70 miles an hour into a tree. And for some people, 70 miles into a tree means cancer. For some people, it means I lost my relationship because my husband of 20 years cheated on me. For other people, it's, you know, a midlife crisis. For other people, it's I just got fired. I mean, that whack a tree at 70 miles an hour moment can look like whatever it looks like for whatever person, but it will happen if you are avoiding your pain. And
so what do we need to do? Is
face it. Go straight into it. Yeah, actually, and we can use our triggers. So the trigger is like basically an emotional flashback. You can use those actually to go back to the original trauma that is causing you to behave this way, not only with the emotional reactions, but also the coping mechanisms you use to get out of it to begin with. And it's those coping mechanisms that are ruining your life. That's the opposite of authenticity. Those coping mechanisms are destroying everything.
And for you, running was your coping mechanism.
Yeah, it was. I got good at it. I had a lot of coping mechanisms. It wasn't working so well after a while. See, when you get safe and you still have them, it doesn't make sense anymore. It's ruining your life now. Now what saved you is killing you.
Very good. And so that is a pretty good question for each one of us to ask. What am I running towards? What am I doing that's becoming a coping skill that I was taught was good for me, that is actually causing our disease in our body? You know, and we talk about this on the show all the time, that only a very small percentage of disease has to do with our DNA. We can turn on and turn off our DNA, but the majority of it is past childhood trauma that we haven't dealt with. But what do we do in order to deal with it when everybody is saying, no, that's not how you do it? You need to, you know, you need to make you're saying we need to make friends with it.
Yes.
And of course, we just have 1 minute left on the show.
Really? Wow.
And we're just getting to the nitty gritty with Teal Swan.
That was just getting started.
Yeah, the fun's just getting started here. And hopefully we can have her just for a little bit longer after the show. So you need to join us at Lillian's radio show on Facebook Live. And so I want to stop here because this is just dipping our toe once again with Teal Swan. A lot of the things you'll hear Teal say is different than what we're hearing. A lot of things you hear on my show are different than what you're hearing in the world. And that's why I wanted to do a show with her, because taking a stand, a new truth that comes to you that's downloaded, or that everybody else is saying you're wrong, and you're going, but wait, here's the evidence. Here's what works. Nothing else works because it's still there. It's still happening, but we look at the distraction, not the root problem. And you can go to tealswan.com and look at the anatomy of loneliness. There's Shadows Before Dawn, the completion process, which we've given books away for that before, and more. Teal Swan, I love the illusion of you. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And for those of you who really want to grow, it's time to take the mirror and look within. This is Lillian Mcdermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Yeah, you said ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian Mcdermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, before we get started, I forgot to mention my off-the-air sponsors. Of course, I would love for you to go to the Mcdermott Holistic Healing Foundation, which this is about a different way of healing the body. We also have Liberty Health Share, a different way to look at insurance. There's not insurance, it's health care, health share. Keep Me Safe Organics, where you keep the toxins out of your body. And if you use it, 10% off if you enter Lily code 10. Just go to my website at whenyounneedafriend.com. First Alternative Care, who can give you 24/7 medical attention through the telephone or your computer for $35 a month per household. This is about life-changing choices here. And of course, the pharmacy in Merritt Island. All of those people believe in the show and would like for you, and I would like for you to check out all of them and see how you can support them the way they're supporting the show. Teal, we just dipped our toe today.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, I don't know if you have time, I know you're really busy, but I would love to have you on more on the show. And I'd love to talk about your latest book, The Anatomy of Loneliness, which it was too late to kind of shift. Ashley told me I couldn't change it. Ashley's the boss of me. And so she said, nope, we got this and it's going to be this. So I'm hoping that you can come back and talk about The Anatomy of Loneliness, which we talk about that a lot. But I want to give you some time to speak to us. For people who are looking at their lives and they're facing diseases right now, it's that 70 mile an hour, I've got to face the root cause. Whatever I'm trying to avoid, I need to own it and face it because I'm dragging it with me everywhere I go. And that is a heck of a whole lot more work than nipping it in the root cause. So talk to us, Teal, and help us understand why it is we need to take the time to dive into and go towards the pain as opposed to avoid the pain.
Well, pain is a very important message. One of the things I love to have people do is to take a piece of paper out and write pain like this way down a paper. And you can write, pay attention, integrate now. Pain is always an indication that there is a message that your body is trying to give you. Otherwise, pain wouldn't exist. This is one of the reasons why, even though Novocaine has a place in our world, Novocaine can be one of the most dangerous things on the planet. Because if you continually numb something that really needs our attention, You've got a person with a compound fracture walking around like nothing's happened, and we all know where that's headed.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, I mean, it's only by listening to the pain and what messages are underneath all of those emotions that we call pain that we can understand what that personal truth is. And the people who really are able to change their lives when they're facing these types of illnesses are the ones that are able to change their lives, period, the end. Because you wouldn't be in this amount of pain if you hadn't gotten here for a way that you've been thinking, a way that you've been doing things. It's those actions, those words, those thoughts that you've been having and that you're not even consciously aware of most of the time. And I mean, people like me, other people too, have tons of processes for how to find those answers. You know, what is it that your pain is trying to say to you specifically? What part of you have you denied and disowned that is trying desperately for you to integrate it back into your life so that based off of that truth, you can make changes?
It seems so simple, doesn't it?
But this is what frustrates me. It's like it is so simple and yet so complex.
It's complicated because everybody tells us that we need to do something different. And I think that that's the root of all this anxiety and all this depression, is that we have been manipulated from the moment we're born to being something we're not.
Totally.
And then eventually our spirit starts speaking louder than what our daily life is like. And like my registered service mark, Teal, I don't know if you know this, but it's you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. And it's not that I'm against the pill. It's that I'm for doing things. You know, diabetes can be reversed in 2 weeks.
Yep.
You know, heart disease can be reversed as well without a stent put in. There's so many different things that we can do, but yet society tells us that it's wrong. That's why I stand alone. I'm like the cheese. We're like cheese. You know, we stand alone. But that's why I'm so passionate about the show, just like you're passionate about your mission in your ministry. Because we know something different. We know something that other people don't know, and it's dismissed as an untruth.
Yep. Well, there's something good to say about the fact that everybody's flooded with an overwhelming amount of information. And that's that if everyone disagrees about what right is, you're kind of forced to figure yourself out, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's got an opinion and they all conflict, then it puts you in a position where you have to point the arrow back towards yourself. And that's pretty much what the universe is interested in people doing now.
But isn't it true that if we were to just work on ourselves and be kind to people and truly be genuine and you know, this golden rule of treating others the way they want to be treated, that's been debunked. You know, people need to be treated differently, and we need to take the time to figure out what is it that this person needs.
Yeah, I have this whole teaching on the fact that the best thing you can do for somebody is to stop trying to love them and start trying to understand them instead.
Other teachings that you want to pour onto us real quick, because I know I want to be respectful of your time.
Not too many. I don't even know where to start with me. It's like,
okay, so we're going to have a Teal Swan series. So for those of you, and I want to be sensitive, for those of you who have any questions for Teal, feel free. We're getting lots of love from everybody that's watching right now, and I'm hoping that people will continue to understand that there is a new truth out there, that we do need to listen to our bodies. Our bodies speak to us, Teal, and you know that as well as I do. It's called a symptom.
Yep.
Go to the doctor, and then they treat the symptom with a pill when our body's screaming at us. And so I just wish that all of us understood that and go from there, but we get so caught up in the distraction of the diagnosis that we stop there.
Yeah.
So there's so much to relearn. And Teal, I want to thank you for teaching your truth. I know you're not perfect. And I know that you are very open about that. And that's very admirable.
Thank you.
We don't want people to see our ugly side, but you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And you give us permission to be ourselves, good, bad, and ugly.
Exactly. There's no way in hell I could be public in the world acting as if I'm only part of myself if I'm trying to teach people to integrate.
Well, there's a persona that goes attached with a spiritual guru.
Oh, yes. And I'm definitely the exact opposite of that.
And we just got to laugh. We just got to laugh it off. And I know that there are people that think that this is not laughable. And for that, I say that it's not the person, it's the message. It's not the messenger, it's the message. And if you can detach the message, just focus on what you can make. It's like there's so many different things. It's like when we go on a trip, we have a suitcase full of stuff that we'll never wear because we're just going to wear 2 or 3 things, but we bring all this stuff. Just take what you want and just leave the person alone, right? Just leave the person alone. Listen to the message, which is be honest with yourself, and your body will heal. Isn't that amazing? We spend a lot of time trying to heal the body, but once we start focusing on our spirit and all the different things that are happening in our minds, our thoughts, then all of a sudden the body starts to heal.
Yep.
So, yeah. Anything else that you would like to share, Teal?
No.
Okay.
I would just leave people with, try to mend the incongruities between your external and internal reality, and you will live a better life, a life you actually want to live. Most people who are actually walking the planet today are living and have built lives that are inauthentic. And so you can't imagine what life can be like yet. But if you start taking those like rather terrifying steps in the direction of what your authentic truth is, I swear to God, there's a day that you turn around and you're like, it's the best thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm. It was worth it.
Yeah.
Worth I think when you can look back at your life with gratitude, what happened to you was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can go back to your abusers, accusers, and all of that, I mean, Teal, if you can overcome your childhood, everything else should be, it's going to be a walk in the park, right? Nothing, but it still triggers those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And you've